Man, there's nothing to watch anymore. You want to get started on that new Webfluke show? I think it's called like The Society of the Stranger Outer Nuns. Oh yeah, I just saw that it came out the other day. Oh! It says that this show has been canceled already because of low first hour streaming numbers. What? But it's been on the Webfluke's top 10 all week. Hey guys, what's up? It's Imurgency and welcome back to my channel. And today we are talking about the entertainment recession. Yes, the entertainment recession. We're not talking about the economy today, friends. Well, actually, we will be sorta kinda in relation to this entertainment recession because, you know, like all things, they are related. Now you may be asking, Rumi, what do you mean we're in an entertainment recession? Let me break it down for you. Let me explain. I can't be the only one to notice that entertainment over the past year, maybe even year and a half, has been kind of dull lately. And there's just been a general lack of new original content in the entertainment industry overall. And when I say the entertainment industry, I mean all of entertainment outside of music. And we'll get into that a little bit later. But TV and film by and large is just really boring right now. We're in an era of entertainment fueled by remakes, reboots, adaptations, sequels, and just not very many exciting new original ideas or IPs. And that's really the important part here, because I could already see the comments being like, what do you mean there's nothing new? There's new shows coming out every single week. Like Inside Out 2 is the most popular and highest grossing movie of the year. And yes, I understand that. And by no means am I saying that these things aren't necessarily profitable. I'm just saying most things that have been coming out and most things that have been popular commercially are not new ideas. Inside Out 2 is a sequel of a movie that came out years ago. A lot of new projects that are being announced right now and that have come out in the past year are reboots, remasters, they're reimaginings of ideas and shows and movies and books that have already came out. And what I'm really trying to harp on for the sake of this conversation is the genuine lack of new original ideas and just original entertainment content. I feel like we've really been in a recession of new original ideas that have been able to break through the production barriers, the marketing barriers, and ultimately the barriers with the era of streaming that we're currently in, to give audiences something that they genuinely have not seen before. And to take it a step further, I feel like the new and original ideas that are being pushed out are actually being prematurely shut down and canceled at honestly alarming rates. So it really feels like in the entertainment industry, we're in an era of constantly rehashed content, repackaged into a new series, sequel, or spinoff, whereas all the new original ideas that are being produced are being canceled within one season without giving them the chance to actually grow and develop an audience base. So sit back, grab a snack, and get ready for a true deep dive into why I believe that we're genuinely in an entertainment recession and what the industry can really do to get out of it. We're talking about how we got here, where we're at, and where we can go in the future with TV and film. So definitely make sure to leave a like on this video if you haven't already. If you're new, subscribe, and don't forget to follow me on my socials at Imurgency on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. But like I've been saying, in this season of entertainment, it really seems that new original concepts, pilots, and ideas for shows and movies are out, and reboots, revamps, and reruns are actually in. And I think that that's largely due to the market of entertainment slowing down over the past year. And you know what else is out this year? Paying for your rent every month and getting nothing for it in return. Which is why I'm so excited to introduce you to this video sponsor, Built. Built is a loyalty program that allows you to earn points on rent and around your neighborhood. And there's honestly so much that you can do with Built points. I've been renting my apartments for the past 5 years, which is about 60 months worth of rent payments. Scary thought to think about, I know. But I'm always thinking about how I've consistently gotten nothing back for the amount of money that I've spent on rent. But now by paying my rent through Built, I'm able to get more of a bang for my buck. They've consistently been ranked the highest value point currency by the Points Guide and Bankrate, and they're designed to fit your everyday lifestyle. You can redeem points for things like flights and hotels, workout classes, towards your next month's rent payment, and so much more. You also get access to exclusive benefits with Built partners, such as transfer bonuses with airlines, status matches with hotels, and complimentary add-ons like free spin shoes and water at some of your favorite fitness studios. You can start earning points with Built right now by clicking the link in my description or by scanning the QR code on screen. And make sure to use my URL so they know I sent you. Thanks so much, Built, for sponsoring this video. Let's get into unpacking why the entertainment market has been so slow. So what's been contributing to the slowness of the entertainment market right now? Well, as someone that's been keeping an eye on and actively talking about TV, film, and pop culture online for the past few years, I had surmised that it is a mix of a couple of things. And actually, wait, hold on. First and foremost, I feel like we can't talk about anything that's occurring in the entertainment industry this year in 2024 without talking about the writers and actors strike that occurred last year. I made a couple of videos talking about and recapping what went on with the strikes last year and how that was going to impact the entertainment industry to follow. And yeah, it seems like those consequences really did hold true. For those that weren't familiar or were out the loop, in 2023, SAG-AFTRA, the Actors Guild, and the WGA, the Writers Guild Association, went on strike at the same time in hopes to get better working conditions, better compensation for residuals with streaming, and protections, as well as actor and writer protections from things like AI that have been becoming more popular and more integrated in the entertainment process. And this strike really did a number on the industry because negotiations between SAG-AFTRA, WGA, and Hollywood execs shut down the industry for a little over 3 months, causing all projects that were in production during that time to come to a halt. Now, 3 months in the grand scheme of things may not sound like a lot, but in the world of entertainment, that is an entire quarter, an entire season of content that was either paused or completely shut down. And this ended up costing everybody a lot of money. A lot of actors and writers were out of jobs for an extended period of time. Studios lost money from the lack of projects that were coming out, and just generally caused this constricted shrinking effect on the entertainment industry. And honestly, since then, the industry itself has yet to fully recover. According to the LA Times, many entertainment executives and workers at various levels have become resigned to the idea that the film and TV business have become permanently smaller. In the heights of deal making in 2021 and 2022, the so-called peak TV era will never return. And we could still see this on an industry scale. And because of the strikes and because of the slowdown, I think this is why we've been seeing an increase in the amount of reality shows and unscripted series come out more regularly and consistently than original scripted series that we've been used to. Because for one, an unscripted series doesn't really need a script and didn't need writers, and they were able to continue on filming because reality stars don't count as actors and aren't SAG affiliated, and they don't need to really write anything, so they don't need writers as well. As opposed to hit shows like Stranger Things or Euphoria or The Bear that all required both actors and writers and could not be in production during that strike. And following the strike, the second thing that I feel like has really slowed down the market is the general lack of spend. Like I said, the strikes were effective in their goal of getting studios to come to the table to give actors and writers more protections and compensation due to the fact that a strike causes studios to come to the table because it hits them where it hurts the most, their pockets. And that definitely did that. It kind of hurt everybody's pockets. Of course, not proportionately, because some actors and writers ended up out of a career for a while because there's no money coming in to pay the bills. And studios are multi-million, if not billion-dollar companies, so they will be fine after a couple months of not making any revenue. But there was definitely a decrease in the amount of revenue that they pulled in, which has caused a chain event of a general lack of spending from these corporations in general, and especially to invest in innovative or new/riskier projects. Because the industry right now is fully in recoup mode. They're trying to make up for their losses. And it seems like 2022 was truly the last year that we saw like frivolous spending from studios where they're just buying up anything and producing anything. In that same LA Times article, it states that streamers are looking for safe bets, programs with big name talent and existing intellectual property, such as popular books. And we've definitely been seeing that. We've seen movies from book adaptations be produced, like Uglies or It Ends With Us, as well as other TV shows that have come out that are repurposed books, spin-offs of old shows, or just general reboots. And that's kind of been where we've been stuck at, with a lot of the new productions out there being either film or TV adaptations, reboots, reimaginings, or sequels and continuations of previous seasons of shows, because the industry and streamers are deeming those as safer bets, with baked-in audiences either banking on nostalgia or generalized need for more content from shows that they already know are doing well. And not that sequels and reboots are inherently bad, because everyone loves a well-done reboot, a well-done reimagining, and a well-done sequel. It's just that if that's all we're getting, and that these reboots and reimaginations aren't actually good or paying respect to the original and sort of ruining the franchise, that's where we sort of run into an issue here. It's the worst market that's ever existed, says Dan Ehrlich, United Talent Agency partner and co-head of its television literary department, though he's seen signs of the US programming market picking up. The correction has been dramatic and profound, and the overall deals are being remade at fractions of deals that have existed for those people in the past. Speaking to the general spend rebounding from the strikes in the current landscape that we're in. So generally, things have not been looking as good as we'd hope they would at this point. And since I've been talking around this, let's actually have a full conversation about reboots. Because I think similar to some of the quotes that I've mentioned before from people in the industry, as well as some industry trends that we've been seeing, reboots are generally seen as really safe bets that are going to make a return on investment. There's not as much risk involved. So doing a reboot, doing a sequel or a second season, a third season of a show is likely going to be more profitable, more more secure, more stable of a payout than trying to put out something new that could possibly flop. I understand that thought process, but the problem with this is assuming that one, audiences are going to show up in the same way every time, despite being fed the same thing over and over again. And it's going under the assumption that this content that they're producing, specifically with sequels and additional seasons, are coming out on a regular basis for a regular payout, which just is not the case. Like, that has not been the case for years, which is part of the issue of the entertainment recession of it all. We're just generally getting a lack of content, even with the shows that are able to get multiple seasons. Like, outside of a few core shows, the gaps in between the seasons that we are getting are honestly ridiculous for the amount of content that we're getting. Like, I don't even really need to mention her, but Euphoria is honestly a prime example of this. We have been waiting years for a season 3, another season of 8 episodes. And that's honestly so ridiculous. And it's like this across the board. It's not just Euphoria. And again, I understand for the context of this year because some of that is impacted by the strikes. But again, this has been a theme even before the strikes have taken place. Like, think Stranger Things. I think the last Stranger Things season came out in 2022. That was 2 years ago, and it won't be back until next year, 2025. Like, it just seems like a lot of even the heavy hitters, like the shows that these studios and streamers are banking on making a return on their investment, knowing that it's going to be a cash cow, are also taking a very long time to be produced, which is leaving fans and audience members just kind of sitting there waiting for content. The only shows that are popular right now that I can really think of that are keeping up a regular release schedule. And again, if I'm missing some of your faves that come out on a regular basis, let me know in the comments. But the main ones keeping up a regular schedule, and by regular schedule, I mean probably like a season a year, are for one, the reality shows, and two, shows like Abbott Elementary, The Bear, and Heartstopper, shows that are able to produce a season a year, have an off season and an on season, where it feels like we're consistently getting content. And I know for some of these shows, a season a year does seem still like a long time, especially for the series that have like 8 episode seasons. That does seem like a longer time, but I feel like for a lot of these shows, these streamers have been picking up on that and trying to extend the lifespan of these 8 or so episodes by going back to releasing them on a weekly schedule, or releasing a batch of episodes on a weekly schedule, or doing like a part 1 and part 2 released either a week apart or a month apart to extend that shelf life so the breaks in between don't feel as long. But it's still definitely a gap. So not only are we not getting frequent quality original content, we're also not getting consistent repackaged, refurbished content as well, which leads to these extended periods of entertainment recession where it feels like everything is kind of boring. There's nothing really good or new to watch. And I can honestly go into a whole aside about how important it is societally that we do have a constant stream of entertainment to feed the masses, by getting into how entertainment as a whole is meant to distract us from like the really real and harsh and dark aspects of the world that are more serious and have been getting more serious and in our face. But maybe I'll hold off on that whole deep dive for right now. But actually, I think I saw that they announced that they're doing some sort of reboot of like the Princess Diaries, and I think another Anne Hathaway movie or series from like a decade ago. And I think that really put the nail in the coffin for me, that things were getting a little rough, because I love Miss Hathaway down, don't get me wrong, but why do we need a reboot of the Princess Diaries that can very well have the potential to let down or ruin such a legendary, iconic franchise? Like, not everything needs a reboot, not everything needs an updated version, because oftentimes they are not done well and with care. And sometimes we need to be okay with just letting old things be old and valuing them for the fact that they existed during this period of time. We don't always need to modernize it and bring it up to speed, because oftentimes, more often than not, the reboot, the reimagining is not nearly as good as the original. So it's just a lot of money for nothing, in my opinion. Which brings me to another thing when we talk about these safe bet shows and movies, because I think we've gone to a point where so much of our content is just rehashings and safe bets based on nostalgia. But like, these safe bets, especially this year, are still bombing because we keep churning these things out, banking on nostalgia, pulling these people in and pulling in these numbers, knowing full and well that these projects that they're rebooting are just plain bad. And we've seen this so much, especially in the box office this year. And like, some of the presumed movies that were supposed to be heavy hitters in the box office this year, like Argyle, Madam Web, Borderlands, and Joker 2, were all really supposed to capitalize on their star-studded cast and the general continuation of original IP. But what ended up happening were a series of movies that ended ended up being either poorly made or just plain mediocre, and they underperformed in the box office because they were just plain bad. And of course, this isn't the case across the board, because there were definitely still series that were reboots or were series continuations that did well. Like I think of the Deadpool movie as an example, but it seems like, especially this year, that seems more like an exception rather than the rule. Where in comparison, some of the more standout movies that I personally loved and I think are going to age really well over the next series of years and received relative critical acclaim are movies that came from more original ideas, such as Blink Twice and The Substance. Both being movies that are thriller and horror, but also play on topics that are relevant to pop culture and society at the time, and just venture to be a little different. Okay, now let's take a little break from talking about reboots, and let's talk more so about what I like to call the vicious cycle of bad and failing content. What I mean when I say this is that I feel like in the modern era of streaming and the modern era of entertainment, when it comes to shows specifically, nothing is really given the chance anymore to just exist and to grow. I've made videos about this in the past, but when talking about the general lack of original and novel media, one of the culprits are definitely the churn and burn of shows in the modern streaming landscape. It really feels like shows are not given the chance to grow roots with an audience anymore, especially if the project is not backed by any big names of mainstream actors. And it's really created this culture in streaming with viewers where people at large are just not getting as invested in new shows anymore. Because it's common knowledge now that anyone that watches shows on streaming, that there is a very real chance that the show that you like and are watching will either get canceled before season 2 or will be left in like this weird state of limbo, having some long ass hiatus for years. I actually saw a tweet on this the other day, so I know that the algorithm is algorithming right now with me, with one Twitter user reminiscing over the good old days of TV, talking about the legacy of the CW, saying that it was called the CW and they made teen dramas and supernatural shows, and the shows went on for 7+ seasons, which were released annually. Almost every good ship had the actors dating at some point. Each cast had their own lore, and once a year they went to San Diego Comic-Con and had panels. And that's real. We rarely get anything like that nowadays in modern streaming. Like I kind of joked about this in the skit at the beginning, but like if your show isn't a hit right off the bat, you can kind of kiss a season 2 goodbye. Like it's just not happening, babes. And the word hit is very relative, because sometimes even if you do have a hit show, there's no guarantee that you're getting a second season anyways. Like just look at First Kill, for example. I think it was like number 1 or 2 on the Netflix top 10 and still ended up getting axed. And this new way of show production is just so jarring, because shows used to have a chance to develop. It didn't always used to be the end of the world if the first season of your show wasn't a smash hit, wasn't going to be the next poster child of the streaming network that it was on. Like the first season didn't need to be a hit right away, because the first season used to be a pilot. The season continued to feed their initial audience and gave the show an opportunity to have a larger audience find it. It feels like the complete opposite now. Like it seems like studios are so desperate to turn a profit as quickly as possible and are desperately trying to throw out shows made for what they think is going to a specific audience. And if it doesn't land with that specific target audience in the way that they think that it will, or on the timelines that they think that it will, they scrap the project altogether without waiting for the true audience of that show to find it and fall in love with it and its characters. Like there are so many examples of shows that build this cult-like following and gain such popularity after the first few week window of a show being available, and even in some cases getting an even larger audience after the show has been canceled. Like I think of shows like The Society or Issa Rae's Sweet Life, I Am Not Okay With This, First Kill, Warrior Nun, and the list goes on and on. Like Half Bad, like shows that grow to be more and more so popular but get axed or forgotten about before they get the chance to actually find that audience that loves and supports it. And I'd say to this, okay, like I understand, like if the thought process is strictly profits, and if for original show ideas you're just trying to churn out as many as possible to see what sticks, my solution to this that I think is like the easiest solution for like the viewer experience of things is to just put out more shows that are intentionally made out to be limited series. Like put out more shows that are only meant to be a season long. Like stop putting out shows with open-ended endings that don't tell a complete story and leave the door open for a season 2 or a potential continuation, when you can just make a limited series and have it end in one season. And if it bombs and you don't have to worry about putting out another one. The fans of that show have closure. They're able to watch it and finish it without having to think about where the story could have continued to go. You're not disappointing anybody. And if the show does especially well as a limited series, then you could surprise fans, make them happy, and entertain the thought, of a potential continuation as an added bonus to the viewer, as opposed to a detractor to them for not getting additional content that the story is leaving open. Like, incredible examples of this are Beef. Beef, outside of the cash drama, was a really good limited series, and they are rebooting that. And because it did so well as a limited series, it's getting additional seasons. I think of Mr. and Mrs. Smith on Prime. That was an amazing show, but gave limited series. There was nothing that gave like there was more after this, and it got confirmed that we're getting more after this. Like, that is an additional plus. I like that, and that makes more sense because you're telling a complete story. You're allowing viewers to genuinely get invested, knowing that this is a start and a finish. You can enjoy it for what it was, and then you reward viewers for really boosting a show so the corporations are happy, the viewers are happy, by giving them additional content, giving them a second season while not promising an extended franchise. That is what we need, okay? If you want to learn something, if you want to turn this system around and increase viewer trust in your product, and you don't want to actually put in the work to let shows grow on their own and be able to exist not being like top 10 performers, just make more limited series. That's all I'm saying. And since we're talking about the corporation's point of view, we're talking about the corporation standpoint. And since we're getting into it, let me fit the vibe. Hold on, I'll be right back. Hello, this is Corporate Chill Roomie, here to do the job that no one wants to or was ever asked to really do, and that is give the corporation's point of view and what they think about things. So from the streamer side of things, the whole concept of putting out shows and canceling them right off the bat makes sense, but it also doesn't. And this is where we get into the vicious cycle of things, so walk with me here. Contrary to the cable era, these streamers haven't necessarily made money off of viewership alone. At least this was the case before they started rolling ads on streaming, where viewership then started to be a little bit more profitable because you're getting more money based on the amount of eyeballs on these ads. They instead relied on something called subscriptions. We're all familiar with this. We have tons of them, right? And if major hit shows like the Stranger Things, like the Euphorias, like the Wednesdays weren't being produced, you know, the same shows that not only keep existing members subscribed to their platform, waiting for the next season to drop, but also bring in new people to get in on the fun and the hype and watch these shows, then in their point of view, shows that aren't doing that and aren't performing to that caliber, there's no use in really keeping them or continuing to produce them because they don't really gain that much financially from that. In a quote from an article from The Standard, for the streamers, says Woods, the thinking goes, is it a hit? Is it hitting straight away? With the studios, they've gotten to the point where a show has to be huge on its opening weekend, otherwise it's a failure. There isn't the time to see if it's going to find an audience, and because they have such a huge amount of stuff, they're not going to go out and promote it or wait and see if it does well. Now, on a base level, while that thinking makes sense-ish, it also doesn't necessarily make sense, because if the streamers are really worried about losing subscribers for their services, but then by gradually lowering viewer show loyalty and investment in any of their other shows that they're putting out when those heavy hitters are on off season, they're just going to bleed subscribers anyway. Because why are you going to stay subscribed to a service if you know the next season of the show isn't coming out for another year or two? And none of the other shows that they're going to put out are going to have more than a season or are going to be worth your investment. And why not cancel your subscription for the year, save the money, and wait until the big show that you really do like comes out and then resubscribe? And that's created a culture where there's so many people out now that don't really care to tune into new releases out of fear and out of the lack of trust that their investment in the show's plot and characters is going to be rewarded with another season. And this is what's created this vicious cycle that I'm talking about, where the original shows that are being created, despite all of the reboots, all of the continuation seasons of the really hit shows, aren't getting additional seasons because they aren't performing well right away and don't have that strong audience backing them immediately, is partially because the audiences that would normally want to go in back and watch these shows and rally behind them aren't doing so because they're afraid of investing in something that's going to be canceled anyway. You see the negative feedback loop here? You see what I'm talking about? You put out a new show and don't make new season because you're mad. People don't watch new show because they know you're not going to give it a new season. There is a cycle here, a negative feedback loop that is not healthy for the sake of entertainment, especially when the only alternative that is being produced right now is what we have now, making safe, reliable choices. And you know that it's bad because you even have OGs from shows that really did capitalize on the state of television and entertainment of years past, of getting multiple different shows, of studios taking risks and banking on shows and continually promoting shows that wouldn't do well on paper and aren't taking off initially. And people like Kerry Washington. Kerry Washington came out on record recently saying that iconic shows, even ones that she starred on, like Scandal, wouldn't have been able to make it and thrive in today's streaming era, in today's today's entertainment industry because the TV climate now is too risk averse, saying that she doesn't know if it would have been greenlight with her, a black woman, being at the center. And it's crazy to think that you have people coming out saying that like, oh yeah, my show wouldn't fly today. And it's not because they said something controversial or racist. It's because the show wouldn't have been given the chance to actually take off and grow its wings and get off of the floor because of the optics and because studios were worried that it wouldn't take off and do as well as quickly as they wanted it to. Which brings back to the whole conversation of doing what's safe and doing what's reliable. While that may be financially feasible for now, it's a very, very, very short-sighted solution, because eventually what's going to happen is you'll either end up A, running out of things to actually reboot, or B, an even more pressing issue, people's nostalgia is going to wear off. You can only nostalgia bait so many things before people get tired, you know? And this brings me to where I feel like the industry is really lacking. Like, this is the overarching theme, and we'll get back to this later, but like the industry right now as it is just too afraid to take risks. They are too afraid to be innovative and generally too afraid to just be creative. And we've seen the impacts of that. And we've also seen the benefits of that when an industry is willing to be innovative and willing to be creative and willing to take risks, with the only entertainment sector right now that's actually flourishing and doing well, that being the music industry, showing that overall creative risks and innovation are the only way through. All right, corporate roomies, let's refocus. Now, when I'm talking about a recession in entertainment in 2024, I am never talking about the music industry, okay? I again have made a video about this before, but 2024 has been the year of music across all genres. Where we've been starved for novel content in TV and film, we've consistently been fed by music artists both large and small. This year alone, with singles, albums, EPs, mixtapes, tours, live performances, etc., etc., the list continues to go on. And a lot of this is in response to a lot of slowdowns in the music industry that happened spanning all the way back to 2020, with lockdowns and quarantines where artists couldn't go live on tour. They were being creatively blocked and didn't put out as much music. We're just now seeing a return to form with almost every single artist releasing music this year and going on a tour this year. And due to that, there's been an influx in music content for fans to enjoy and consume. Like, this really feels like the music industry's equivalent to the 2021-2022 TV and film boom. And industry-wise, according to RIA, the Recording Industry Association of America, basically the people responsible for certifying albums and songs gold, platinum, etc., etc. As of August 29th, 2024, recorded music revenues grew by 4% to $8.7 billion in estimated retail value, and streaming subscriptions were up 3% to 99 million over the first half of 2024. Both record highs as streaming continues to post strong growth, entering its third decade in the US. Going further to say that with paid subscriptions contributing nearly 2/3 to the added value in this period, vinyl shipments accelerated faster than any other major music format at 70%, stating that total revenues grew by 3% for a record high of $5.5 billion. And I give those stats to say that it's interesting because, like I was saying, the music industry had been going through its own form of constriction and constraints the TV and film industry kind of went through last year, and has been going historically with the rise of streaming and the impacts that that's had on the ever-changing entertainment landscape. And I think from the artist's point of view, something that's really been driving the success of music this year, because people can put out music as much as they want and have, doesn't mean that it's going to be good. The music this year has been abundant and abundantly good. And my theory behind the reasoning of that is that experimental music is back. It's out with the overused, oversaturated, and also somehow underutilized samples, interpolations, and just boring songwriting and instrumentation, and genuinely innovation is back. And I'm not going to say that this is the case for every artist that's released music this year, but for a lot of the heavy hitters in music this year, a lot of these artists took risks on their project. They did not just pump out something super commercial, something super safe, something that they knew was going to immediately get them a return on investment. Either trying out different sounds, different lyrical topics, different genres, or just truly and fully trusting and betting on themselves in the music that they make and the rollouts for the music that they make in ways that they previously have not done. Now, thanks to Sabrina Carpenter, you may say, Rumi, this is not a great example because she makes very commercial music. I would say, a la contraire, I think this album is really commercially successful because she took risks on this album, experimenting with different genres. Short and Sweet as an album is a collection of different inspirations from different genres. She has country, she has disco pop, she has elements of R&B, and then the traditional pop sense. But what she did differently with this album that is especially creative and different from other artists is that she really played into the wittiness and the catchiness and the hooks of her songs' lyrical content. Almost every single song on Short and sweet has a very identifiable hook or line in it that is super repeatable and so uniquely Sabrina in a way that you can't really equate to another artist. Then you have an artist like Beyonce. Beyonce's Cowboy Carter this year is one of the exemplars of taking risks and trying something new out. She made an entire country album. As an artist that has made one, maybe two country songs prior to this album in her entire career, and she's been doing this for decades. Cowboy Carter was extremely different and extremely experimental for her. And even in this album with heavy country inspirations, she does weave in other genres into this country album as well, making this fully a Beyonce album, but in a way that we have not yet seen before, making this project just so innovative and unlike anything we've gotten from her and also other artists. And I can go on and on for other artists that have really experimented, been really innovative with their rollouts, with their eras, but the one album, the one artist that I feel like I need to talk about in relation when we're talking about innovation, when we're talking about creativity, we're talking about taking risks and really betting on yourself, is Charli XCX's Brat. I think that Charli released one of the most innovative and experimental mainstream dance pop albums this year that truly encaptured both old fans as well as new fans that had not previously been privy or really interested in that genre or scene of music. And that includes myself. Like prior to Brat, I had not been a huge Charli XCX fan. Like I really only known like some of like the really major hits like Boom Clap and Vroom Vroom. And I had never really been into super dancey electronic-y music. But I think what was so different about Brat and why this all kind of relates to this general concept of entertainment is that the Brat album and its subsequent remixes and eventually the sister remix album of Brat took hold of an entire summer and partial part of autumn by just giving us something so different, something that the mainstream public was not used to. Like the closest thing that we've gotten to this was Beyonce's Renaissance being a dancey album, being a mainstream dancey album. This kind of took us to a different scene, a different sector of like the dance pop scene, because Beyonce's was more ballroom inspired. This one, Brat, is more so rave club culture, dancey vibes. And through the marketing and through the music, she gave the audience something that they didn't know that they wanted or didn't know that they liked, and took a great risk on that, because that is a giant risk. Being forward thinking and giving the audience something that they didn't know that they want or didn't ask for could go one of two ways. People could either love it or they could hate it. It can do really well or it could bomb. And in this case, because she took that risk, she had the right finger on the pulse and she was right. It was a major success for her. She put out something that she felt super confident in, as opposed to something that'd be more commercially or traditionally safe, and something that the label and that the industry was expecting of her.
Like this record, it's not going to, there's going to be like no like traditional radio songs, like whatever. There's not going to be that like traditional, like this is the single kind of a vibe, because we don't live in that world now. Mm-hmm. And you, the label, should recognize that, and you should recognize that this like fan base that I have built are so hungry for me and my peers and our kind of like slightly left world of like pop dance music, that they're hungry for us to succeed.
And nothing about Brat gave the traditional line of success. Like it wasn't rolled out in a traditional commercial way. The songs themselves aren't something super typical that you'd see on the Billboard Top 20. And even the album cover, as extremely polarizing as it was very unconventional for your typical pop star, your typical mainstream girl.
I was like, this actually is really good. And it actually feels like it very much embodies the word brat to kind of not be there, you know, because that is sort of less of the norm, I suppose, for female artists, you know.
And the big takeaway from this is that she knew what she wanted to make and she knew what her audience wanted, and she took a risk on betting on both of those things. She was creatively in line with where she wanted to go, and she went there without expecting anything from it. And this is sort of where the tie-in back into the TV and film world comes, because I'm sure some of y'all that came in for the TV and film stuff are like, why are we talking about music? It's just the general importance of creating work and working towards the future versus working on the past and doing what has historically worked in the past. Because like I said, it really feels that when it comes to the TV and film sector of entertainment, true creativity and innovation is out. And it's clear that Hollywood and the industry itself is suffering because of it. The viewers, the audiences are suffering because of it. We're yearning something that will knock our socks off, something new to fall in love with, a new IP. And we're just getting so fatigued by entertainment because it's giving us things we've already seen before. It's giving us stuff we've already known, we've already loved, we already have an emotional connection to it. And all of this does not open any door for us to fall in love with anything new, which again Again, this feeling of like not wanting to watch anything new can be attributed to the lack of trust in investing in anything new, with new shows not really being safe anymore, as well as possibly our shortened attention spans, not wanting to invest in anything new long term, when we can instead go back to something that feels safer and something that's more familiar. But that doesn't always have to be the case, because I really feel like if there was more stability, if we were able to trust in the shows that we watch more, then we would invest in them more. In this whole thought process and not investing in anything new, not putting out anything new, and just focusing on the past is not very forward thinking and not an imaginative outlook. And you'd think, especially when it comes to Hollywood, the entertainment industry, the place where magic is supposed to happen, where all types of stories are supposed to be told, both future and past, you think that it would be an industry right now that would be meant to spark our imaginations, because it's historically been an industry to the public and the work that it produces based on wonder. The work that it produces is supposed to get us excited about the endless possibilities of storytelling, both past, present, and future. But I think because of the industry-wide risk averseness and risk averse decision making, low budgets, and general corporate greed, we're stuck in that past portion. We're in the era of rehashings. We're in the era of reboots and repurposed previously released material. And I know that this is really idealistic and there's no real immediate corporate incentive to change or to do this. But I think in order to really start seeing real change in the movie and TV space, the industry needs to become more comfortable with taking risks, needs to be more comfortable with bombing, putting out things that they don't have 100% faith will do well immediately, and still actually investing in it to make it grow. And I'm not saying just throw out anything. Like, listen to your audiences, have an ear to the ground and know generally what's relevant to audiences, know what's relevant to people of a certain age group, and just take time to invest in it. Because at the end of the day, that gives more opportunity to workers, to actors. And while it may not be an immediate positive for the industry, it eventually, once you get shows that people are really invested in and watching over a long period of time, you're going to have more shows making money. I don't know. Again, could be very idealistic, but my thought process is like, at the end of the day, projects are going to bomb regardless. Again, look at the movie performances this year. But I think by strategically choosing what projects bomb, you can actually learn more about what new things audiences are looking for and really want to watch. And yeah, that's just my 2 cents. Like that, I feel like if the industry is able to move more so in that direction, I feel like the industry could pull itself out of this entertainment recession that we're currently in, because we're bored. Respectfully. Woo! That was a lot of yapping, friends and family. Now I want to hear from you. What do you think about all this? Do you believe that we're in an entertainment recession? And if you do, how do you see a way out of this? What solutions do you think are possible to make TV and film more interesting? And if you don't, what shows have you been loving? What's been keeping you preoccupied? What's been keeping you entertained over these past couple of years? I'd love to know. But yeah, y'all, that's gonna be it for this video. Thanks so much for watching. Again, if you're new to the channel, then definitely subscribe, leave a like, follow me on my social medias at Imurgency. Special thanks to my top tier roommates listed here for continuing to support this channel. Don't forget to click the link in my description to get started with Built. But other than that, y'all, I've been Imurgency, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.